come once again to discuss things.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. This is yet another episode of Geeky Gentlemen History Month, the month in which we discuss the contributions that geeky gentlemen have made to history but that have been ignored by a biased educational system. Joining me today is Rasco of Rasco's Modern Life, and I am, of course, your wonderful host, Sid Part 2. So this week we have a review topic, and Rasco picked this episode. So, Rasco, what will we be discussing today?
127 years.
I think that's a different movie.
I know. 127 hours.
Indeed. Alright, so what made you want to pick this?
James Franco has a new movie coming out, The Disaster Artist. And he's in this movie. That's it.
I love all the thought and reasoning you put into these picks, Rasco.
Yeah, it's just it's purely coincidental. That's why I picked it.
That's okay. It's okay. So this is like a movie that's got quite a reputation. I remember when this came out. I did not realize this was 2010. It makes me feel old. I remember when this came out that like everyone was wondering, do they show the scene where he cuts off his arm? Do they show that scene? Yeah, they show it. I'm just trying to think, like, what about this, besides just that it is a thing that happened, really makes it worthwhile, like, as part of a discussion in History Month. And so, if I'm going to put that job on you. You got to sell me that you didn't just cheat.
What do you mean? It really happened.
Yeah, but what makes it historically relevant?
I don't know. Sometimes people have to cut their arms off. That's a thing we can all recognize.
Yeah, I love that there's like a very basic theme of like history. So when you think history, you think things that are historic. And you're just like, this happened to a guy. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, for some reason, this History Month, when it came around, I just, like, really started to question what exactly does count as a historical movie. And, my perception of the genre has been bent, and that's why we wound up with this movie.
Fair enough.
So, that's all I can say.
Well, I'll let you take the reins on this one again. You decide where we're going to start, what directions we're going to go in. Go for it, Rasco.
All right. So this is a very interesting movie because you have what is essentially like a non-story. It's like a guy gets trapped and now he's trapped. And it's like, okay, that sounds really boring. Like, what? But then you peel back the layers. I mean, why this movie works, I think, is because of its director, Danny Boyle, who I've not seen all of his movies, but every time I see one of his movies, I just like really like him more as a director. Like, he is like one of the most just energetic directors ever. And I think that he incorporates so much like feel and the way that he'll just have all these different detail shots and really fast editing, and he really captures like a lot of really unique moments that feel real. When Aaron's just kind of like having hallucinations and stuff because he's dehydrated and things like that. So I think that what's really impressive about this movie to me is that it is so, at least I find it incredibly like engaging, but just based on the subject matter, you would think that it would be a really dry movie.
Well, I mean, this is in that same vein as movies like Buried and Open Water. And I quite like Buried because Ryan Reynolds just gives an amazing performance in that. And Open Water is, for my money, the most boring movie of all time. Like it is like 2 hours of literally open water. And so this is like up there as like it could have just been, an hour and a half of the dude just stuck in the canyon by himself, but like all the hallucinations and fake outs and stuff really give you more of an intense setting, I would say. And so that, I mean, it's a really interesting directorial choice. And I don't know, I guess I'm still just left with, like, what makes this a good idea for a movie?
I think it's a great idea for a movie because it's such an obvious, like, there's such an obvious, like, arc for someone like Aaron Ralston.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You want to unpack that?
So, I mean, okay, so he's this guy. He's kind of just like a lone wolf. He wants to do everything on his own. He's an adventurer, and he kind of just takes his life for granted that, like, everything's going to work out okay, and then he'll be there the next day, and that he doesn't need to let people know where he's going. It's fine. There's always tomorrow to talk and get in touch with his family, all that kind of stuff. And he winds up he puts himself in the situation where just one mistake and instantly it's, oh gosh, it's life or death. Like, I have to figure out a way to save my life, and and if I can't save my life, I have to figure out a way to muster the willpower to cut off my arm so I can then save my life. So I don't know. I mean, it becomes very apparent very quickly that the only way he's getting out of there is by cutting off his arm. But there's so much in the movie dedicated to him just kind of thinking about things and building up the balls to do that. And I love it.
Okay. And see, I don't know. Part of me is like, I guess the flashbacks, the hallucinations, all that stuff really gets me scratching my head at points. And I don't know why. I'm not sure how to get about this. But I will agree, I do think that character growth is there, and, like, I like that the very first thing he did once he got his camera out was, like, immediately say, please give this tape to my parents. Because he is on that line between life and death, like, really early on. He kind of realizes it. I don't know. I mean, I don't think it'll surprise you to say that I didn't enjoy this movie very much. That being said, I don't think it's like a bad movie. I just think this is definitely one of those things that's very much not for me.
He's a hater.
Yeah.
Everybody send hate comments to Ian.
I don't know. This just one of those things where I'm like, okay, the guy clearly made a bad decision, and now just has to deal with the situation he has because of that that decision. So what's his growth? What's his character for it? And then they like kind of give you this moment of what gives him the final inspiration to cut off his arm and thus live, as opposed to just kind of accepting his fate and, starve to death or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the idea that he can have a kid one day. And that's... I mean, it's compelling, but at the same time, so much of this movie is done visually that, like, I have a hard time kind of keeping up with it. Like, when he sees that kid toward the end, right before he decides to cut off his arm, like, finally do it, it seems like he's like I didn't know that was I didn't get a 100% confirmation that is, quote unquote, his future child, so much as I was just like, okay, is that like him as a kid again, or what? Because we spend so much time flashing back to other parts of his life. It's like none of these kids look like James Franco, so.
I think if you look in the ending credits,
yeah,
you can
I know.
see all the different like ages. So there is like an age 5 Aaron, so yeah, I don't know.
It's just like when you see the kid for the first time, you don't get confirmation that it is like him seeing his future son until later in the movie when you get like the little text pop up that says Aaron's vision did come true. He and his wife had a child in 2010. And so there's just like a lot of that where you're like, wait, who's that supposed to be? What's supposed to be going on right now? Like, we get like the failed relationship, and we get like just weird moments in it without really knowing anything about it beforehand. And I don't know, it's just like I guess I had a hard time following all of it. In the end, I connected it all together, but we're talking an hour and a half of sitting through it to get there.
That's fair. I mean, yeah, Danny Boyle's movies are really a lot to take in at once. There's a lot of information given to you really fast. Yeah. I understand where you're coming from. I guess it kind of helps that, like, when I watched this movie for the first time, I was also, like, looking into Aaron Ralston as a person, like, reading a lot about, like, the real life, facts of the story and everything.
Oh, good.
So I knew a little bit about him.
No, I just vaguely remember hearing this story of, like, the guy that got his arm trapped in a rock and had to cut it off to survive. And, like, I just don't really know a lot about this, like, actually as it happened, so, first question, did he actually have that camera?
Yeah, he did.
Okay. Interesting.
So I have not seen like all of the footage, but I have seen clips of like the footage and stuff like that where he's like talking about like, here's all the stuff I have, blah 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 blah, and like some of the I don't know like everything that he did on camera, probably not, but a lot of what he does on camera is very much like actually something that he did. He had a camera with him. It was really cool, and all of the items that he has are like the exact like things that he had. Like he had like a burrito and he had like this plastic water bottle, and they talk about his knife, and like the knife is exactly what the knife was actually like. There was a big long blade that he couldn't really use because it was dulled because he chipped it, and all of these details are like incredibly accurate. And like the cutting the arm off scene is like the most accurate thing in the movie, where it's like the process is exactly like it was. He had to like break the arm, and then the nerve, he talked about how he was getting to the nerve, and when he just saw the nerve, it was like this little spaghetti string, and he knew that he just had to like just go through and pluck it as hard as he could and just get it out. And like it just sounds horrifying, but all of those details are like so accurately preserved in this movie. It's so weird.
Yeah, and I mean, it gives you the real sense of desperation and stuff. I don't know, I'm having a hard time coming up with really anything to say. I'm like, yes, the film accurately portrayed these things. That's cool to find out. I don't know, I'm having a hard time with this one, Rasco. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I don't know. I guess one of the things this is one of those movies that kind of got me interested in movies that were like outside of specific genres that like typically when I was growing up, I was just really into things that were like sci-fi or, monster related and stuff like that. But this was one of those movies, and movies like 8 Mile, they were just these movies that I heard about that I was like, I really want to see them because, when I was like in middle school, I was really into Eminem. And when I was in high school, I was like really into the like just like weird stories like this and survival stories. And I heard how this had happened, and I was like, I need to like watch this movie 127 hours because that just sounds crazy. This guy had to cut his arm off and everything. And it was just one of those movies that I like just immediately was so interested in seeing, because that is one of like the scariest situations you could find yourself in. But it's also one of those things where it's like, after that like the moment where he realizes he's stuck, the shock on James Franco's face is awesome, because it's like, oh my God, literally like 3 seconds ago, I was not in this horrible situation. If I had just not stepped on this freaking rock, I would not be here. It's like, and then like, I just have to like think, could I get myself to a place where I could cut my arm off? Could I do it like like, could I do that? And then when you get into the movie, it's not just like gore porn. It's not gore porn at all. Like, it has a horrifying scene that is kind of gore pornish, but like, it's a necessary scene. It's the most important thing that happens in the movie. Pretty much, he cuts off his arm. But
I love that he takes the time to take a picture of the rock before he walks away.
Yeah.
Because like, for me, when I was watching that and he's like getting everything and getting ready to make the decision, I'm like, okay, so because you can't help but think of what would I do, or what would I think I would have to do in this situation. And like, to me, my thinking would be, okay, clearly once I cut off my arm, I'm going to, one, be in incredible amounts of pain, and two, I'm not gonna necessarily like have tons of time. No matter how good you tie it off, you can still bleed out, right? So, like, it seems like every move would have to be planned thereafter. And I like that this kind of just says, no, he was really just focused on the whole getting free of the rock part. He didn't really have a ton of plans for after that happened. So he just takes the second to take the picture. And I really do wonder if that was an actual thing that he did, too.
I think it probably is, because I'm pretty sure that you can like look up that specific picture.
Oh my God. Ugh. Like, this is why I went through a phase 2 in high school where I was like into the survivalist shows, and I was always just like, no, I ain't doing this shit. No. Not going out to the woods. No, thank you. But I don't know. This is weird to talk about in History Month, because it is both like not like of much historical importance, but it's very like ultimately human. It's just like kind of a primal thing that, you know, people had to fucking deal with at one point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And now people, of course, choose or kind of get themselves into the situation where they have to deal with it now. And so that's interesting. I don't know, like, I remember that when this happened, the question everyone was asking was, could I do that? Could I cut off my arm? And I'm like, I don't necessarily know that I could.
Yeah,
like,
it's crazy. It really comes down to, like, you have to weigh your options. It's like, all right, I could try to cut off my arm and maybe live, or I can just not do it and probably die. And like, it's just really, like, I don't know. How much do you love living, I guess?
Quite a bit, actually. See, it's that weird thing, like, yeah, you know, you can talk about it. I don't know, like, this is such a weird thing to talk about, because the real answer is you don't know if you'd have the strength to do it until you have to do it, right?
Yeah, nobody knows, really.
I don't know. It is a shocking reality, I guess.
Yeah. And then, oh man, it's just unimaginable. But like, once that's happened to you, like, I just love how you come out, like, there's no way you, specifically because of Aaron Ralston, like, in this, like, as a character. By the way, I just think that James Franco is really good in this movie. I think that he's like perfectly cast in this movie. But Aaron Ralston, what I love about him is that he actually comes across like really endearing in the beginning of this movie, because even though he is kind of, you know, just like blowing off his family and just being kind of reckless, he's got this like really awesome like free spirit, just like fun loving attitude that's really cool. And he's got like so many, like he's the kind of guy that carries around a little video camera with him and starts like filming himself, listing out his supplies that he has when he's, you know, trapped with his arm in a rock. Like that's just a really kind of like endearing personality. Like why is he doing that? He's just doing it. So, I don't know. Like something about that is just really cool to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like it seems to me the first thing I would think to do would not be videotape myself. But that's really interesting. James Franco is really well cast in this. James Franco is one of those actors who I'm like, man, you are a really good actor when you're given good material. You have terrible taste in movies. Like we were talking movies that have had weird stuff happen to him right before release, and like The Interview is another one of those. And The Interview is an awful movie. And James Franco, like, loved being in that. Kind of like a lot of his movies with Seth Rogen. They're all really bad. But he loves doing them. So, like, he's a weird actor where I'm like, God, when he wants to, he really can act, though. And so, I agree. I think he does a good job here. I like that you forget that you haven't seen the title of the movie until the rock falls on his arm.
Yeah, I noticed that.
That was a good editing.
Yeah, it's like 16. Grab. It's like 16 minutes in.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's crazy, but it's awesome.
Now, is it just me? Did I like look away from the screen at the wrong time? Did they stop giving the days at a certain point?
Ooh, I'm not sure.
Because like I thought that like they were keeping track of when the days were changing and stuff, but I just stopped seeing days at a certain point.
I think I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe there's a point in the movie where he like kind of like loses track, and maybe it like stops at that point to like kind of put you in his head, like you don't even know how many days it's been. But I'm not sure. I can't remember.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's talk about the editing then.
Okay.
Because this does a lot to try to really fake you out. Like, how many times does he think he's out of there?
I'm not sure exactly. Do you mean just like having visions where he's not in there, or like where he specifically escapes?
Well, like there's obviously the scene where he gets washed away and he gets out. Yeah. But like, isn't there another one where he thinks he's free or something, or it's sort of the beginning when like everything happens in reverse or whatever.
Are you talking about when it's playing that song in the morning and it like goes to his car or something like that?
No. It's when he first tries to fall asleep, but he's like clearly replaying the events in his head. And it just like rewinds for him or whatever. Yeah, it is like kind of darkly funny that the In the Morning song plays and he remembers that he has the Gatorade in his car.
Yeah.
That was pretty dark.
Yeah, I know, that's horrifying. Because like all you can do in that situation is think about that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like you'll start you'll start thinking of things that you're like, oh my god, everything is so close but so far away.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's neat to see how inventive he gets, and like when he first drops the knife, and then he's got to get like the stick and curve it and put it in his foot and pick the knife up with the stick connected to his foot, and then get the stick to his hand so he can get it. And then like I like that he learns from his mistakes, which is, you know, impressive to show in a movie that's kind of like all in chronological order. I like that he learns from his mistakes, and like he ties the knife to like his shoelace or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty smart. But But there's a lot that they do, like, in the way that this is cut. Like, maybe it's just me. Did you notice that when he's having, like, fantasies about hanging out with the girls that he meets at the beginning, that, like, he's kind of just outside of everything that's happening, and you don't see the arm that's trapped?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so in his head, even in his, like, fantasy world, he already has, like, removed his arm from himself.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. I love how they make you enjoy, like, what he enjoys. Like, so you know how in the beginning he's kind of just like exploring the canyons, and he's just like having the time of his life. He's just like exploring and going all over the place, and he's just hiking, and it's awesome and free, and it looks awesome. And he's like feeling the rock, and it's like cutting between both his left and his right hand as he like feels the rock and slides his hand or along like the rock, and you can just like hear the sound of his hand with the friction of the texture of the rock. And I just like it's just like somehow the way that he like edits it together, it's just like his hand, his other hand, his other hand. You hear the sounds, and then it will cut back to him, and then it'll cut to his face, and then back to his hands. And it's like you really like take in the environment, because the way they like cut the movie together, and then on top of that, the sounds and the details that they focus on, and how he just throws it all at you. I just think it's really impressive.
Mm-hmm. I agree. It's weird how much they try to, like, throw you off with things and fake you out. Like, when the rocks or pebbles or whatever, like, fall on his head and he thinks there might be someone up there, so, like, he immediately starts screaming for help. Like, that really takes you aback, because right before that, he's talking really quietly.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, if you're me, you're turning up the volume on the television trying to hear him, and you're, like, listening very closely, and then all of a sudden, help, help, help! You're like, oh, shit. That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. It's also really demoralizing, too, in that situation, right? Because it's like he's trying to keep calm,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like, oh, shit, there's an opportunity to escape and get help. Help me! And it's like the reality of the situation comes through for a second, and then it's like, oh, no one was there. Oh, man.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you just kind of remind yourself, yeah, I'm stuck down here. And I'm yelling for help, because if I don't get out, I'm going to die. Like, that is so, like, it's just the worst situation you could be in.
Mm-hmm. Like, I think the moment where you just see how hopeless he is and all this stuff, is, like, it's shortly after he's been trying to, like, push the rock for the first time. And then he's, like, screaming for the girls that he met.
Yeah.
And it just slowly pulls out. And, like, you can hear his voice the whole time that it's pulling out as he's just screaming and screaming and screaming. And then it gets all the way out, and, like, his voice is just completely dissipated because it's not carrying far enough.
Yeah.
And, like, and you just see the huge, wide open landscape, you know, like, shit.
Yeah.
It is intimidating. Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, this is random, but at the end of the movie, you know when it's like showing like the pictures of, it's like showing some like real pictures of him and stuff like that. I like how he has like a freaking pickaxe over his like missing arm in one of them, when it shows that he like climbs mountains and stuff. He has like a pickaxe arm.
Well, yeah.
Badass. That's like awesome. Like, if you only have one arm, that's how you do it. You put a pickaxe on your other arm and you climb mountains. That's badass.
I mean, it's certainly inspiring that, like, he didn't let this, you know, thing that happened to him turn him away from the thing that he loved.
Yeah.
As horrible as what happened was. How'd you feel about the way they threw in, like, the failed relationship stuff?
I think that I don't know. I think it's kind of like I think it's necessary and like it's not something that you would necessarily hear about in like the true story. Like if you were watching like a documentary or some sort of interview with him, you wouldn't expect that to come up. But I think in the context of this, when you're that alone and you're just with your thoughts and you're really facing your own mortality, you're going to kind of think about all of that kind of stuff, the things that you have like the strongest emotional ties to in your life, the things that kind of like pull you to your life the most and tie you to it. And so I think you would kind of start going through thoughts and memories and feelings like that.
I'd agree. I was just surprised by like how much of it connected back to that. And I guess, you know, it's weird because I don't know if it necessarily makes a ton of sense with how much they focus on the relationship. Like, is it just me, or did you feel like they focused more on the failed relationship than they did on the way he treats his family?
I would say it's pretty evenly split between if we're comparing the amount. I don't know. This viewing, the stuff with him and his family really stuck out to me a lot. Mm-hmm. But in past viewings, like the first time I watched this movie, I know what you're saying. Like there is a lot with him and that whole thing, but I don't know.
Well, I don't know. Just like it's weird because, like, the family angle makes the most sense to me. He is kind of a selfish person that's like ignored his family to go do these things for his own enjoyment, right?
Yeah.
But like, I just don't know really why the relationship failed, and it doesn't feel like it's connected to this kind of behavior specifically.
Yeah.
You know? Maybe that's just like my reading of it, but you've seen it multiple times. You tell me.
I don't think that it necessarily has anything to do with his behavior. I think that you're like right in noticing that. I think that it really kind of just is a matter of those are like really good moments and he's in such an uncomfortable place. Like the same way that he's thinking about like water a lot. He starts like having all those like water flashes. He's like alone in a cave under like he's like alone in a little canyon. I feel like the reason he's seeing that is just purely because those are like great, warm, fun, inviting memories and feelings that they're like associated with those like flashbacks and stuff like that and visions. So it's kind of like
some of them maybe, but like the breakup scene and like the hallucination or whatever you want to call it of like getting free and driving to her house and her slamming the door on him.
Mm-hmm.
Like those didn't seem to be the same kind of tonal fit, and what little we know about the relationship, like it doesn't seem to have a direct correlation to ending because of what happened, or of the way he's like treating others, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's just me, I don't know. Like it just seems like I feel all the family stuff is pretty, you know, on point and kind of hammers in the way that he's acting now and with regret. But like the relationship thing, I don't know, it just seemed like it didn't tonally match to me.
Well, you're just a Grinch, Ian.
I know.
Ian doesn't like love.
Yep, pretty much. Don't recommend it. I don't know, man. I have a hard time talking about this movie. It's like, it's certainly not bad. It's just like, it's not incredibly engaging, and I don't think it really wants to be, if that makes sense. I think it kind of wants you to be uncomfortable and not really sure what to think of it.
It's definitely very uneasy if you know what's coming. Like, so you knew the general story of this movie before seeing it, right?
Yeah.
So I wonder what people who have no idea what this movie is about think. when they see it.
Whew.
Just get like some random person. They have no idea there's like an arm cutting off scene. No idea that it's even about someone getting stuck with their arm in a rock. Throw 'em in.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're like, oh, this is a fun movie. James Franco? Is this a comedy? And then it gets to him and he's like stuck. And you're like, oh man, no. It's not.
When are the wacky hijinks gonna start back up?
When's the cave swimming coming back?
Yeah. Oh. Mm-hmm. I don't know, man. I don't know what to think. I don't know what to say. Take us somewhere else, I guess. What else is something we can discuss with this movie?
I'll talk about some of the music because I think that in certain scenes it's utilized really well. When he's cutting off his arm and it finally gets to the nerve and he's like touching it and it's like I heard him describe how it felt. He said that when he hit the nerve, it kind of felt like his arm was just like on fire. And that just sounds horrifying. Like that's what like in real life, Aaron Ralston said that in an interview. And so in the movie, when he like starts plucking his nerve, I like how the score is like, it's like, I don't even know what that noise is, but it sounds awesome. And it's really uncomfortable, but it like totally communicates exactly what he would feel. Like it's weird. It's like somehow the music communicates like a physical feeling. It's so cool.
There's a lot of like we talked about the morning song. There's a lot of like ironic and dark humor in this too.
Yeah.
And, you know, I remember after this happened, like a lot of people kind of made fun of the guy. And it was like, what kind of fucking idiot was doing this stuff and blah 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 blah. What was the joke? I can't remember the comedian, but like he had this line of like, as soon as this happened, everyone was talking about, could you do it? Could you do it? And I was like, yeah, I can cut off a guy's arm, no problem. It's whatever. And so like it's kind of aware that there's a part of you that wants to kind of poke fun at the guy or kind of like look down on him. Let's put it that way. Because I don't think like if you saw someone in this situation, you clearly, the first thing you're going to do is not make fun of them. But like it clearly wants, like there's kind of this undeniable side of where you're like, God, that was stupid of him. Where like part of you wants to blame the person that got themselves in this situation for what happened to him. And so I feel like this movie does a good job of acknowledging that there's... What's the term I want? Acknowledging some level of personal responsibility, but still making you empathize with the dude. Or sympathize for him. Feel sympathy for him.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree with that? That like scenes in this seem to like kind of almost make fun of him or like highlight the ridiculousness of what situation he's got himself into?
Yeah, sometimes it does it in like a really kind of funny, but when you really think about it, dark way, like when he is pretending to do like a radio call-in show, and he's like making fun of himself pretty much. He's just kind of riffing on how dumb and how ignorant he was, and it's funny because it's like really energetic, but you realize like this is how like far gone he is. Like he's to this point where he has like the energy to be manic and weird and goofy because he's like on the verge of just giving up completely and breaking. And it's really kind of like, oh, but that scene is funny and fun. He's really good in that scene. But yeah, it definitely does kind of, well, that's the whole thing. You know, it's kind of, this is like a cautionary tale. It's like you have so much to live for. There are so many really important things that if your life was put on the line, you would be thinking about and like would want to be able to take part in again. And so like anything could happen. You know, you might be put in a situation like this sometime. So, you know, just I don't know, it's just kind of like a general be grateful kind of story.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Or at least like appreciate your family or the people that you care about and that kind of stuff. And you have to think about the things that make life worth living, and that's what gets him out of that situation.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel about the fact that like we cut away from him so much to hallucinations and things?
I think that you have to do that, or else this movie could get boring really fast.
Well, see, I don't think that you have to, because there are other movies that have taken, you know, kind of the lone man premise kind of thing and worked with it.
Yeah, I know they have, but they have more to work with, because it's like, if it's not a true story, for one, you kind of are working from the ground up, and you're kind of like, okay, there's a bunch of things. Like, the whole point of the movie is, you'd think that'd be boring, but we figure out how to make this a really entertaining story. There's a bunch of things that this person has to accomplish to get themselves out of the situation. Well, this also has that, but at the same time, it also has a lot of nothing. Like, the true story is a lot of just being stuck. And so you can't start creating a bunch of things that, and on top of that, I think that this movie is more specifically about Aaron, so it needs to spend a lot of time doing things that are relevant to like his character and him and what he's feeling, and less so plot related, like keeping you engaged in some sort of like moving plot. I think it needs to stay more focused on like his character, what he's feeling and thinking about.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I feel like, again, I kind of go back to, I don't know if this should be a movie or not. I mean, you can do flashbacks and hallucinations all you want, and for all I know, maybe the scenes that they show are based on things that he was actually going through at the time, like or thinking about or thinking he was experiencing at the time. But I feel like part of doing that, I guess, distracts from the reality of the situation that he's in for the audience, maybe? I'm probably stretching too much because I just want to think of something to say of substance, but I have very little to say about this movie, is what I keep coming back to. Huh. I don't know, maybe I'm just not used to all the hallucinations, because this is the first movie of this type that I can think of that does a significant number of hallucinations.
You should watch Trainspotting. It's another Danny Boyle movie.
I like Trainspotting.
Oh, you've seen it?
Oh yeah, I love the scene where Obi-Wan Kenobi crawls out of the toilet.
Ian's a hater.
It's not about hating it. It's just like, what can you say? Yeah, it's the guy gets trapped and then spends 5 days trying to figure out how to get the fuck out. Let's talk about his escape.
Oh, I love the ending of this movie.
Yeah?
Yeah, I love how, like, it's like what's literally happening on screen is like something out of a horror movie. He's just like, this guy's like, help! I need help! I cut my arm off! And it's like really scary and creepy, but given everything that we know and the music, it's like you're like watching like a rebirth. It's like he's like free, and like you understand, like from this moment on, he's a different person. Like he's defined by this, and I don't know. I love the ending of this movie. I just love the music, and I just love how long it goes on, and then it's just, oh, it's great.
You know, I was honestly surprised it didn't end like right after he got out of the canyon. You know?
Oh, really?
Honestly, I was surprised that we got literally anything after he cut off his arm.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, I expected maybe a minute after he cut off his arm of footage before credits started to roll. Like, when he took that picture of The Rock, I thought that was going to be where the movie ended. And then I was really surprised that it kept going. I was like, oh, okay. So now he's got to get out of the desert. Well, this will be interesting. And so, like, he's got to, rappel down the rock wall, and he just fucking collapses into that puddle of nasty-ass looking water. That, like, God knows how long that's been there. So I don't know, it's like, it's a good ending, and you definitely, like, get some catharsis that, okay, he got out of it, that's good. Maybe you'll know, the couple that represents him and his wife that he sees on the couch at the very end with the baby. Is that the actual guy?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool that he's in his own biopic.
Yeah.
He looks nothing like James Franco.
I think, like, but he doesn't really look like James Franco, but he like evokes, like, James Franco evokes that same kind of, like, young, adventurous, like, just, like, personality. I don't know. Like, I really think that he's perfectly cast.
How old is James Franco?
Right now, I think he's probably 37.
So he would have been 30 when he was filming this, then?
Maybe. I could be off.
Let's see here. 78 is when he was born. Okay. I don't know. I just don't... Rasco, you gotta help me, man. I don't know what to say about this movie. I don't know what to think about it, man.
Why don't you have any feelings? Or are you some sort of, like, robot?
Yes. Yes, I am. I don't...
Cut your arm off, Ian. If only Connor was here. Connor loves survival movies.
Really?
Yeah, he always talks about how he loves survival movies.
Well, Connor had the chance to be here, and then I asked him if he'd seen 127 Hours, and he was like, nope. So he must not love survival movies that much, because he's yet to see this.
Well, maybe he was saving it.
Yeah. I don't know, like, I don't want to say it's a bad movie. I don't think it's a bad movie, but, like, I've just never had this little to say about anything. Like, that's the thing, is, like, it's like, yes, I watched him sit there and go crazy and then cut off his arm and not be crazy anymore. And that was the movie. I don't know. It's not like a similar problem to, like, The Conjuring, where it doesn't have any themes. It's clearly got a theme. It's clearly got a narrative. There, like you said, there is a character arc. I'm just, like, left here like, it was a thing that happened. The end.
I don't know. I guess you just don't really just connect with this story.
I guess.
Maybe I feel that way about true stories all the time. There are a lot of true story movies that I just don't give a crap about.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe it's just that thing. Like, I could never honestly see myself in this situation because I don't do shit like this.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, obviously, it's 2003, so cell phones weren't as prevalent. Even if he had one, it probably wouldn't have had a signal. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I just don't think I would go anywhere without my cell phone to where I could, like, call for help. Like, maybe you could say, oh, well, your battery's dead or whatever. I'm like, okay. I mean, still don't go out to the wilderness by myself to be by myself. Not because, like, I'm afraid of this specific thing happening, but just, like, I don't know, I just don't I don't get much enjoyment from that type of isolation. It just does make me nervous that, like, something bad will happen and I'm not going to be able to do anything about it. So I just, like, remove myself from the situation. So I just don't really relate to this story at all. If anything, it's like, yes, you are right, Ian. Good job.
Avoid nature.
What's that movie? The Gods Must Be Crazy. You ever see The Gods Must Be Crazy?
Nope.
It's about this, like, small, isolated African village that has never come into contact with the modern world for one reason or another. And then, like, one day someone throws a Coke bottle out of an airplane and it lands in their society and completely fucks up their entire social structure.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like, they start using it as a tool, and it's like a better tool than literally anything else they have because of just the material it is made out of.
Mm-hmm.
And it just like fucks up their society, and so they decide to get rid of it. And they send one of the guys out, and he's got to go to the modern world to return the Coke bottle. And like, just along the way, there's all these little snide, commentaries about how like ancient man, lived according to nature, whereas modern man has nature live according to him. And I'm definitely in the second camp there.
Mm-hmm.
I like my air conditioning very much. Oh.
I like it too.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Well, what do you think? I mean, I think one thing that's pretty impressive about this movie is another thing that's really impressive is that James Franco has to carry a lot of this movie like by himself. Like, there's a lot of cutaways to other actors and flashbacks and stuff like that, but a lot of it's just like James Franco's face and him just constantly. And that's like, I don't know, that can be intimidating, I feel like, as an actor. It's just you, pretty much.
Oh yeah, physical acting is like a lot harder than people give it credit for. That's why I give a lot of credit to stunt performers and stuff like that. Because just physical acting, it sounds so easy. Oh, you just sit there and look vaguely sad, but there's a lot of emotion you have to convey, and Franco does a good job of it here. When he's like thinking about the fact that like, I think my favorite scene is when he sits there and talks himself through the earliest that help could conceivably ever arrive.
Yeah.
And like that, like obviously he's talking, but just there's so much in his face as he goes through the thought process there. And that's really, really interesting. And then there's like the scenes where he's just like clearly not 100% there because he's like, experiencing dehydration and all that stuff. And he's like, just, I don't know how you look half awake without actually being half awake. Like, it's hard to like act sleepy without it looking comical. But he does a really good job of it.
Yeah, he probably was really actually slow. Like, he probably like really just stayed awake for a long time.
Maybe. Huh.
That's what I would do. Just actually be tired.
Fair. One thing that like confused me, and I wasn't sure if it was like a real thing or if it was a choice by the director and the actor. But like when the rock first lands on his arm, and you get that like oh shit look.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, would you feel pain like immediately, or what would be up? Because he's clearly uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But he doesn't look to be in excruciating pain when that rock lands on his arm.
Yeah, I think that he's probably like in shock or something.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of shock.
Yeah, because like I've never had like an injury like that before, but I've had a few injuries like and I've broken bones and stuff like that multiple times. Like I broke my arm once, and it's it's like a pain that you can't really remember because it's like you only ever kind of feel like an ache. You don't really feel like pain, and it's it's like the shock kind of numbs it in a way. It's weird. Like if it's shocking to you, if it's like something that you kind of see coming, it's different. But it's all about like the situation. Like he fell and was like, "Oh my God, I'm falling," and then he doesn't even know what's happened to him, and he looks and then he realizes what's happened to him. So it's like I kind of buy that. That's literally his reaction.
Yeah, because I just wasn't sure, like, and obviously they had the benefit of getting to talk to the actual guy. I wasn't sure, like, what level of pain you would feel, because I don't think the rock breaks his arm right away, right? It just
No, it
traps it, right?
Just yeah, just squeezes it really tightly against the side.
So, like, I don't know how much pain would actually be involved. And then once blood stops flowing to it and everything starts to die, you would stop having sensation in it. So
Yeah.
I wasn't like, I never thought this through of like, would you feel pain from just having your arm crushed in that manner? Um,
Yeah, I don't know. I imagine it definitely doesn't feel good, but who knows? It's really scary though. I don't want to think about it.
Well, this is what you get when you pick movies like this. You have to think about it for a review.
I don't want to
Maybe
think about it.
put
That's
more
my
thought into the movie that you want to talk about, Rasco. All right, fine. We're stretching, and we've been stretching, and we've been stretching. So let's finally end it and just go on to ratings then.
Okay.
What will you rate this movie, Rasco?
I will rate this movie. I'll give it 4 out of 5 pickaxe arms.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go slightly lower. I'm gonna go 3.5 out of 5 cheap Chinese multi-tools. So it should be Steve's pick, but Steve's not here, so I'm gonna hijack his topic. Because I got another topic that I wanted to talk about, but it didn't look like I was going to get the chance to this year. So I'm kind of excited then that I get to hijack Steve's topic. So we're going to talk about The Bomb.
Okay.
Yep. That'll be the name of the episode. Geeky Gentleman, The Bomb. Capital T, capital B.
Check it out! It's gonna be the bomb, guys!
Yes, as we talk about nuclear proliferation and the wider consequences of seizing fire from the gods, as it were. Okay, should be a good one, everybody. Tune in for that. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher,
And I'm the beta male cock.
and we are your Geeky Gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.